Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nerdcast. I'm Devin. I'm joined as always with Justin, and
Hello.
Kelly is manning the station over there.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? Welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. It's a little cold today. It's a little frigid. I
Cold
wasn't
and
really
wet's the
expecting. It was
worst.
like 80 degrees the other day, right after the day it snowed.
Yeah. Today and yesterday have been absolutely miserable days.
Yeah.
Just miserable.
Our planet is definitely coming to a rapid end.
You think so?
Oh yeah, it was like 80 degrees or 70 degrees in Antarctica a couple
Oh,
days
it
ago.
was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're all doomed.
We're doomed. Like this is
Doesn't matter who wins the election.
Yeah, that's also happening right now. Like the
Hampshire.
New Hampshire primary for those watching in America and who have an interest in that sort of thing. They're counting the votes as we speak, supposedly. They're supposedly counting them. We'll see what shenanigans comes out of this one.
Yeah, because they couldn't handle the last one.
yeah.
That was just, whoa, slow down.
Iowa just completely caved in on
It
itself
did.
somehow. But
Which is weird. It allowed everyone to claim victory. It's like, well, I'm sure I actually won.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was saying. I was like, damn, I probably came out with some delegates
Yeah,
on this
I
one.
did too.
Like shit. Well, okay. So not getting too deep into it. It was amusing in a really tragic way because like the big story about the Iowa thing was that it was caused by one of the big causes was an app. Developed by a company called Shadow. And
Really?
Yeah, the company was called Shadow.
I didn't know the company was called Shadow.
The company was called Shadow, and they were funded by some group called Acronym or something. It was like the most sinister sounding thing.
They were funded by KGB, Klinghofs.
Well, the sad thing is, somehow like the pictures of the development team got put out on Twitter, and it was just like the saddest group. It was like, imagine what a stereotypical redneck Trump supporter would think a stereotypical obnoxious
my cousin
liberal
worked on that app.
Well, they definitely need to find a better wardrobe. They need to fix they need to do something that doesn't make
Well,
them
your
look.
cousin's a redneck.
No, not redneck. Like a stereotypical yuppie liberal is what all of these dudes look
that's
like.
okay.
Yeah, like if you looked at the Trump dictionary for what like a shitty liberal looked like, it looked like exactly what these dudes, and it just made me feel so bad for them. Like, you shouldn't take those pictures at work, man. Like those goofy pictures where you and your pals are all like making silly faces and shit. Because as soon as something goes wrong, those pictures are what's gonna be on the internet, making it look like you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
So I just felt sorry for them because I know what software development is like. I know what it's like to put something out and then technical difficulties cause mass.
Was that really what happened though, or was
That's
it
a part of what
just
happened.
A clusterfuck, and the
Well-
people that clusterfucked it were like, I think it was the computer developers.
It's a couple of things because something else came out from that whole debacle, and it turns out that what really caused the uproar is basically just transparency. Like, I guess a lot of people from the Bernie camp argued before the vote that they wanted a more transparent process so they could see how the vote allocations were going and whatnot. So, like, the working theory behind this is that the Iowa caucus was always a nightmare. It's just that the lack of transparency meant that nobody ever knew it before.
Well, aren't caucuses
suck.
just completely terrible
They're-
anyway?
they're-
It's like,
they're-
if you're for so and so, go stand over there.
Yeah.
Okay. You're standing in between. Well, you made up your mind. We need you to stand either over here, either with
us or you're
I don't know what to do.
cross that red line. Cross that line. But then the worst part is, what if you're caucusing at the same place that your boss is caucusing at or something? Or
Well, I mean, ideally, you would be almost on the same team.
Well, ideally, you're not going to be.
Your boss is not going to be a Trump supporter. You know what I
Are
mean?
you kidding me? If you are like working on a line at like a Tyson's chicken plant, and then like you're like one of the top managers or whatever, is also who makes like six figures or so at a Tyson's chicken plant, is also there. I'm pretty sure that they have divergent passes in there.
Yeah, my point is that like the Republican caucus isn't in the same night on the same place.
What makes you think he'd be a Republican?
No, that's my point, is that they'd both be Democrats and theoretically generally on the same page. No one's going to be like, Like literally, if they're a Trump supporter and they were and you're that would be I could see that being a major issue. But if they're like for Bernie and they're for Elizabeth Warren, it's kind of like
no, but that's not no. What it is you're either for Bernie or you're for like Pete Buttigieg or some crazy shit like that, and it's like two divergent, like two radically different things that are being forced to like collide at this moment. So like caucuses suck for that reason. There shouldn't. Yeah. I guess maybe there shouldn't be a huge divergence in thought between inside of one party.
No, theoretically not. You're like, that's something complete. I was like, it's not really supposed to be.
But it is for a wild reason. Part of that being that the other party just went way off into like psycho territory. But like that's just a random happenstance there. It's just interesting that's so when we're talking about New Hampshire, that's what I was saying. Like, maybe they're theoretically, we'll see what happens. It's a primary, so it's a vote on a machine. So maybe,
yeah, they should just vote.
Yeah, that's all it should ever be.
Caucus is what?
We should start an app for that.
Just go vote.
We should start an app. Like that's the money. That's where the sweet money is.
Yeah.
Like, there's no accountability. Like, I don't care if my shitty picture gets put out there. If something goes wrong, I have my money.
Yeah.
I'll have my money. And then
I'll got rich.
That's all you need is one payday.
Yeah.
Just one good payday. So that's,
You're like, I don't even care who wins. I got rich. I'm voting for Trump.
Bloomberg, damn it. I'm voting for Bloomberg. I didn't get stopped and frisked, so fuck whatever he wants.
Yeah, man, that came out over the last few days.
You can hear about all of this on the Red Alarm. We keep you up to date on all of the political happenings, but in talking about news with regards to film and we've got some video game news and stuff.
Nice.
So let's just jump right into this weird shit that's going on. Kelly?
All right, first up, Birds of Prey, disappointing box office opening weekend. Brought in only 33 domestic, I think. Crap, I can't find the worldwide, but I know as of today, it's pretty much it's gotten right to its budget back. It's at 83 million, and the budget was an estimated about 82 million.
It's been open for 5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so. I mean, I guess like
miserable failure.
Yeah, like the idea.
Well, they think it's gonna keep going down
because it didn't have like an apocalyptic box office in the first 2 days. That it was a disappointment. Like
it'll get to that 2.5 mark everyone wants. I think it will.
It'll get there eventually. I mean, I think that and I saw the movie. Kelly saw it.
Yes.
And it has really good scores, really good reviews, and I think rightfully so. I enjoyed the movie. I think that there's probably going to be decent enough word, but I don't expect it. Like the real test is going to be the following week to see how far the fall off is.
Yeah, and but it seems like they will get. They got to make 100 million more than their budget. Is that what the deal is?
They sometimes say 2 to 2.5, and right now they're pretty much at right even now. So
with the movie with its marketing budget, which I imagine is pretty big because this has been a heavily marketed movie, probably has to make 2.5 times.
Yeah, they'll probably get there, and they'll probably make a little bit, like a few million beyond that, and then they'll go on like video on demand and all that stuff, and they'll make some money there, and lots of people got paid. And
it's just people are wondering if they should have just called it Harley Quinn Anne, which is what they've changed now. The movie is now going to be called that.
Honestly, I watched Screen Junkies break it down, and they did a great job. And basically, it was rated R. That's it.
I'm not ready to believe.
I think Deadpool's almost.
If you look at the numbers for Suicide Squad, they're like.
Well, yeah. I get that there is a discrepancy between PG-13 and R-rated comic book.
But I think Deadpool killed that myth now.
Yeah, but the thing is that the closest like you can look at what. So a movie like Deadpool, isn't marketed towards the demo. Like this particular movie looked a lot like Suicide Squad.
Okay, so see, that's what I think. That's what I think the real thing is. Like, I think that their demos are identical. Deadpool and Harley Quinn. I think that there is extreme amount of crossover between the types of people you're marketing to. I think that the issue is that this movie looked a lot like Suicide Squad in its trailers.
Yeah,
and that's not good. So
well, the thing is that
I think a lot of people probably were waiting to see what the initial weekend results. That's why I'm saying I'm more interested in what the fall off is going to be. If it's not that big of a fall off, then I think it's going to have longer legs in theaters. It's going to make its money back a lot sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that people like the movie probably means that will stick around. But they were doing they do the math and the breakdown of what Suicide Squad made in its opening weekend and then how it broke down demographically.
Right.
And it's basically the fact that kids couldn't see this movie just essentially halves it. When you look at who saw Suicide Squad demographically,
but
and who would have seen this
that's,
movie,
but that's
they
not,
basically just literally halved it.
But that's not like Warner Brothers didn't take that into account. They had their own metric for which they were measuring their expectations for, and even by their metrics, it was an underestimation. They didn't say that they were going to make $200 million on the first weekend.
I think they were hoping for 45 to 50.
Yeah, it was still a very modest amount.
It was 45, and then tracking had it at 55, and of course they came in at 33. But I want to say, I just the tracking with Dan on Screen Junkies lays it out really, really well. When you watch
Are you
that,
talking about Dan? Are you talking about his charting show?
Yeah, charting with
It's
Dan.
so addictive. He's just so weird and nerdy about his numbers. I love it.
Well, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He breaks it down really well.
Yeah.
And their conclusion was that a lot of the of the soft opening had to do with the fact that it was rated R for who would have gone to see it. Suicide Squad did really well. I mean, Suicide Squad. That's what it's called, right?
Which movie are you talking about now?
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad, the first one with Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
That's what it was called.
They were saying basically it's like for a minute there. I was thinking Monster Squad. And I was like, what, did I even get off on the wrong?
Yeah.
Monster Squad's a much better movie.
Yeah.
But they were saying that this movie functions as sort of a de facto sequel to Suicide Squad to some degree, even though it's not. It's got a major character. She was kind of the breakout character in Suicide Squad. And it looks like Suicide Squad, the color palette and all that, from the trailers. And they were saying that, if it had been PG-13, that, they probably would have done better. It probably would have been in the 45 to 55, based on, just if the people that had gone to see Suicide Squad, that were underage that couldn't see this movie. Because, you can't buy a ticket for, PG-13, under 13 can buy a ticket.
Right.
That's just a recommendation. That's not but R, you got to be 17 to buy a ticket to the movie. So, I don't know. That's just what they said, and it made sense to me having watched it. But
how do you think Suicide Squad 2 is going to do being rated R? It's also going to have James Gunn's name to it as well.
I think. Well, I think there are a couple of things. I think that is it gonna aesthetically look like the first Suicide Squad? I think that there's some of that does translate into how people perceive it based on their first impression of Suicide Squad. I think that'll factor into it. I think the release date will factor into it. I think that February is kind of still new territory for big releases. It's only been several years now, but it's still relatively new for big February releases.
Yeah, but it seems like a movie could come out and crush in February. Because didn't Black Panther release in February?
Yeah, and that's. I think that may have been
not a lot of competition.
That may have been the first movie to release in February that really crushed.
Yeah,
and that was 2016.
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was just a few years ago. So it's still relatively new. 2017. So they're figuring it out.
18.
Was it 18? Hey, the years keep creeping up on us.
Well,
it's 18.
It's 18 because Last Jedi came out in the end of 17, and that came out.
You're right, because Infinity War came out a little after Black Panther.
Yeah.
And that was also 18. Okay, so just a couple years ago. It's still they're still kind of feeling it out. I think Deadpool was an R-rated February release, and that blew up. But they're not all apples to apples here. So
yeah.
I think there's a number of things that are good, and I think that James Gunn is kind of there's enough of a story about why he's working on a DC movie, based off of him being fired and all that sort of stuff.
That'll play into it. The curiosity will drive people out, I think.
I think there's just a lot of other outside circumstances that's going to feed into how that movie is received initially. So again, I don't think that's going to be a complete apples to apples, but it will be interesting to see how that launches. But I think that what's interesting to me is that. This Warner Brothers had a couple of somewhat high-profile failures, not necessarily based on the quality of the movie. These past few months, they had Richard Jewell that underperformed, and I've heard pretty decent things about that. They had another movie that underperformed recently. God damn it, that movie just slipped my mind. Kelly, you know what movie that was?
Well, yeah, you wrote down Doctor Sleep, but I mean, it still made more than its budget back.
Doctor Sleep initially was like that was another one where it was like within the first couple weeks.
I also think that's another issue with the Birds of Prey thing, where it might be they probably should have called it Shining 2, which I don't like, but maybe it would have worked a little better money wise.
I want to see Doctor Sleep. I've seen some scenes from it on YouTube, and I was like, this looks like it's pretty cool.
It's an awesome movie. I liked it.
Oh, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. Like, that's why I was initially surprised, because I saw it a little after. I didn't see it on its opening weekend. I saw it maybe a couple weeks after, I believe. And that was after I'd already read that, it's disappointed at the box office and all that sort of stuff. And I don't ever watch movies based on whether it succeeds or fails or anything like that. So, I mean, I went and saw it, and it was awesome, and I was like, I don't get why people, weren't hot on this. But
I'm just kind of...
that wasn't the kind of movie that was going to have, like, a big boom at its release.
I just think people are getting to the point where they expect too much from, like, the opening weekend. It's getting to the point where it's just kind of getting ridiculous. I mean, it's not to go off on a rant or sound like an old man yelling at cloud here, but it just kind of seems that, like, as more and more movies is the idea that everything has to be this tentpole blockbuster, and all the other films that aren't that end up on Netflix or something, or come out just so they can be in the Academy Awards. You know what I mean? But other than that, every movie that comes out, this is gonna, it's some kind of property, it has some kind of franchise and idea. It's gonna, but everyone's expectations, it's like, it came out, it didn't absolutely destroy the box office in the first 3 days it was open. It's a miserable failure, and it's just like, god damn,
Well, I mean, that there's a I guess a philosophy of development, I suppose, I'll say. That and it tracks across gaming too, because when I worked at a large publisher, they had a similar sort of idea where I remember we had an all hands meeting, and this had been after our studio had suffered some pretty brutal layoffs, and our studio head decided that instead of concentrating so much of our budget and our focus and manpower on one title and then laying everybody off after that title's release, what we were going to do is we were going to start staggering development on smaller projects so that we can keep our manpower and just rotate them off of a team for project to project, so that we never had to lay anyone off, so that we can just keep developing, release, and then roll them on to another project while another one's being released, and then roll them, etc.
Yeah.
And the executives just put the kibosh on that right away, and they said, no, the directive going forward is we are going to release, like, as a company, and this is a major company with thousands of employees, we're only going to release 4 or 5 big titles a year. Like, we're focusing only on blockbusters. We just want blockbusters, like, because they give us our most return. They have the biggest return. And I know I was reading an article, I forget which production company it was, but they basically said the exact same thing. Like, movie studios just want blockbusters now because it gives them their best return. So I think that's what we've seen. We've seen the move away from the sort of mid-budget movies. They still get made, but like there's really no.
It just seems like with all these like numbers and all the like, how well did it do at the box office and how did this that we've kind of sportificated fucking movies.
Well,
I mean, it's like everyone has their team. You're like a DC guy or a Marvel guy, and it's like this movie's gonna come at the box office. People like wanting things to fail, like wanting a Marvel movie not to succeed or a DC movie not to succeed. And everyone's
that's a little different. That's a different sort of
it's just
thing.
Like no, it plays
they do take those numbers and weaponize them.
Yes, it's like the whole thing is just like it's like gamification of. Just going to the fucking movies.
I don't think that's anything new. I mean, that's kind of.
No, I think it's new. Like,
it's not.
In the 70s, it's the same. We didn't do that shit.
Well, I mean, it's the same. It's the same. Well, it's different than the movies, but it was the same as like the console wars in the early '90s, where it was like, oh, I'm a Sega guy or I'm a Nintendo guy, and you just rooted against or people that were Pepsi, Coke, or whatever. If you have a dichotomy of things that kind of vaguely represent one another, there are always going to be people that pick a side and then try to kill the other. There will always be people that'll argue to the death about Pepsi over Coke, or about Six Flags over Disney, or about DC over Marvel.
Who would order Six Flags over Disney?
There are people that fucking
have never been to either Six Flags or Disney both. It's not even fucking close.
Oh well, it's close monetarily, man. It's close. It's. I mean, there are a lot of people that can't afford to go to Disney and have a Disney Disney experience, and then just say, okay, we'll go to Six Flags, you know, and then like and like there are people that grow up in that mode, and then they have an affinity to Six Flags. They like the characters. It's Bugs Bunny. It's all this. It's all that, and then they have a childhood memory of it.
I can remember when Six Flags wasn't those characters. That's actually the Six Flags I liked. I liked when it was actually the theme was Six Flags. You know,
Six Flags over Texas.
You know? That's where you went. And they had the different area. It made fucking sense. All of a sudden, Bugs Bunny and Batman and shit.
Well, they had to compete with Disney. They had to compete with Disney.
So
I mean, but
a trip to Disneyland completely like.
I'm not saying that it's not,
and I'm not even like I'm just. I love Six Flags, but it's not like
it is. Name Disney's closest competitor then.
There is
for an amusement park.
There's no
I said closest.
Disney.
There Universal? Is. It's Six Flags.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I guess if it's closest competitor, I guess. Yeah,
that's what it is. I didn't say it was good. The feeling you have against Six Flags to Disney is the feeling I have against for Pepsi against Coke, or for fucking anything else that is obviously the lesser tier.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, though. There'll always be
arguing it would be better. I mean, I can be like, dude, I fucking love Popeye's fried chicken. That's a great fried chicken. It's like, yeah, but Ruth Chris's is better. It's like, yeah, you're right, but I love Popeye's. You know, it's like,
not everybody says, yeah, you're right, though. That's the point. That's the thing. Like, there will always be people that put their stake in the
like,
fucking,
no,
and they fight, and they just want to argue over that shit.
I guess,
you
dude,
know. So like, it's not new. It's not new. Well, data and the prevalence of numbers and the availability of the numbers just make
that's my point. It's a combo.
Weaponized.
It's a combo of the internet. Everyone can check in. This is like knowing what something made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Plays into its narrative. That shit never fucking happened before. It was just like you went to the movies and it was either good or it wasn't. Yeah. And you knew if it was doing well because all your friends saw it and everyone was talking about it and it was like, this movie's really big deal. You know, it was obvious. And now it's just like the minute it opens, if it doesn't open, like literally 5 days after it opens, that was a failure. It failed.
Well, keep in mind that it's kind of it's a double-edged sword that was perpetrated by the production studios because they want big numbers. They use those numbers as a marketing tool, right? So like if a movie actually does well and they sell a lot of numbers, they're the ones that send those numbers out to be reported on because they want people to say, oh, wow, it made, $250 million in the first 2 days. It must be good. I got to go see this. So like, it's a marketing ploy that cuts both ways. So, yeah. I mean, it does.